Frances Pickering, who is Executive Director of the WestCog. I might pick on Frances again. Speaking of transportation, can you briefly explain the Live, Work, Ride bill?
Live, Work, Ride is House Bill 6890. Now, Live, Work, Ride's premise is that we need to build more housing, and the housing should be located near transit, because if you can get by without a car, you can save a lot of money, have more disposable income, which is absolutely correct. Where Live, Work, Ride goes off the proverbial rails is that it confuses there being some transit in a municipality with having high quality transit. So Live, Work, Ride says, if a bus stops anywhere in your town once a day, then that town needs to rezone for higher density. And we know as a transportation planner, that's hogwash. Transit-oriented development only works when the transit runs to where you need to go. So if a bus stops once a day across town and doesn't take you to your job, your school, your bank, your doctor, et cetera, it's useless to you. And nobody's going to get in a car and drive to a local city bus. They might drive to an express bus, but not to a local city bus. In fact, Live, Work, Ride goes beyond that and says, if a bus stops anywhere in a neighboring town, you have to rezone. So the bus stop might be 10 miles away, and yet your town has to rezone for higher densities, which generally can only be accommodated by public water and public sewer, or a miniaturized version of that called an alternative treatment system. These are all very expensive to build and maintain. They're beyond the capabilities of homeowner associations to maintain. So it's setting up standards that don't really work in practice. If we are going to do transit-oriented development, we really need to pull it back and focus on the high-quality transit, the commuter rail and the bus rapid transit, and not the bus that goes through town once or twice a day.
Thanks, Frances.
Alexis, may I continue?
Yeah, please, yeah.
Live, Work, Ride. Well, there are a couple of aspects of Work, Ride. Frances talked about where it's located, but it doesn't address affordability. And that's the funny thing about it, which is, the whole concept here, we're supposed to be creating affordable housing, but they don't have affordability kick in until you build 10 units on an acre. So any developer in a more wealthy community is going to bypass that and just build 9 and 9 again and 9 again and 9 again. And what will happen is they're just going to look to densify the area, take their money and run, and not actually create any affordability. So that's a gigantic miss in Live, Work, Ride. The other aspect is as Frances talked about, along the commuter rail, but we're talking essentially Metro North. But if you look at the DEP's own information, their own maps, and talking about global warming and sea rise, it's going to be all along the Metro North corridor. Essentially, if you look at Westport specifically, within 20 years at high tide, the train itself might be inaccessible. So is this exactly where we're supposed to be densifying and putting all of this infrastructure in and all of these people, if in the end, global warming is just going to wipe out all of this area? So that's a big problem. The other aspect is the goal of Live, Work, Ride, and Desegregate Connecticut has said numerous times, is to build enough density and build enough housing that it will ultimately upset the infrastructure, the underlying property value infrastructure, to then drop all prices down so that there's more affordability that way naturally occurring. But in doing that, you're definitely buckling the underlying property values of the people who currently live there. And again, it comes back to that same argument I gave before, that the very people who have made it and are working hard to stay there are going to be the first ones to get it in the neck. And that's the problem. That's where we need to look at what will happen if these things do occur. I mean, I could go on for a lot more, but I think they got more questions.
Yeah. And I think it's also important to note that Work, Live, Ride is an opt-in. And towns that don't opt in, they would face the termination of various brownfield remediation funding.
Well, that's not really an opt-in, is it? An opt-in is saying, hey, do you want to do it or don't you want to do it? Right. This way it says you want to do it or don't want to do it, but if you don't want to do it, we're going to cut off all your money. That's not really an opt-in. That's a twist your arm in. And I have no problem if any particular town wants to do it and go for it, they should be able to. And I think the state should help them do it. But towns that have other ideas in doing it, such as Westport and how we're creating affordable housing, we shouldn't be forced to do it. And I think that's where the opt-in should really be an opt-in. And I think they should be looking at how to create real affordability and not allowing developers just to be able to come in and build what they want and leave without giving this town or the affordability any, say.
Yeah. Thanks, Matt, for adding to that. Then, Fred, I want to go back to you. because, it seems to me that Work, Live, Ride actually punishes towns who have actually taken great initiatives when it comes to transit-oriented development. I know a number of towns have done that in Connecticut. What's the story with TOD in Greenwich?
Well, we around our train station, especially our main one in Greenwich, we have lots of multifamily homes, lots within walking distance of the train. So these TOD bills that were there, going to mandate, how many certain amount of units per acre, I think it's 15, basically outlawing single family zoning, especially where our train station is located right near the water. And we're already having an issue with flooding like every other, of the other 168 municipalities. So it's every way you turn on this, these are bad bills and bad ideas. And again, and I agree with Matt, it just ends up hurting the people we're trying to help. And it prices them out, but it also puts a burden on everybody else. And it's by way of threat. Basically, they threaten you with these bills. And we just have to reach out to the legislators all around the state and give them the facts and talk about what's happened in New Jersey and talk about the successes. It's not always protesting and saying these are bad bills. It's talking about what we're doing and all the success stories we have. And that is, I think, the way to lead for the towns like where the senator represents. Yeah, some of them, he's right. What are you going to do? Their jobs aren't there. Their infrastructures aren't set up for it. So it's almost, pretty obvious where it looks like the towns are being set up to fail. And, all they're going to do is put everybody in court for a long, long, long time, long after the legislators that are pushing this are gone from the legislature.
This is a really great conversation. I want to thank you all for being here, for the audience for being here. And please write your legislators, no matter how you feel, if it's good, bad, and different. I mean, just get engaged and do your research. CT169Strong.org, lots of information on there. Get involved. Thank you again. Have a great night.
Thank you.